Who should own a child's learning? Now, I've been getting a lot of pushback because some would say that it should be the teacher that should own the learning. Some would say that it should be the child that should own their learning. And others would say it's the parent who own their learning. In fact, I've written about that. But what I'm trying to do today is to clarify exactly what I mean, because actually all three of those answers are wrong. Here is what I mean by that. This is what I call the ownership of learning curve. And in fact, this curve is defined by 3 or 4 categories. And we'll just draw some lines here to show them. 1, 2, 3, 4 categories of a child's learning and development. So what happens in practice is this. When the child is very young, firstborn, nobody argues that the child should own their own learning. So when the child is first born, the child has 0% ownership of their learning. Who does have the ownership of their learning at that point? Well, nobody can argue it's the parent. The parent has 100% ownership at that moment. And now those folks who say that it should be the child that owns learning, right here I'll point to you and I'll challenge you on that, because no child under the age of 2, 1, 3 months can own their own learning. They can own components of it, but that's exactly what I'm going to show you. So over time, the parent's role shifts from being full owner, dropping down to being something different over time. So during this moment up here, the parent is the driver. They are deciding things. They are deciding when the child should go to bed, when the child's going to get a bath, when the child is going to eat, when the child is going to sleep, right? These are all things that the parent is fully 100% in control of. Now, what happens to the child? It's the reverse. Ideally, the child starts way down here, but then they come up, and at some later point, they are controlling all of their learning. This is the ideal. The problem, however, is in our educational structure, this is what actually happens. The school, I'll put that in yellow, the school takes ownership of the child's learning almost exclusively. Child can't decide what they're going to learn, can't decide when they're going to learn it, can't even set up the plan for how they're going to learn it, and they certainly can't evaluate it. They play 0 role in evaluating their own learning. This is what this school does to actually keep a child from becoming an owner of their own learning. So in this model, the child, who we represent in green, I think, stays flat. They do not own their own learning until, guess what? Until they graduate, and now they're expected to then all of a sudden go from 0 to 100 overnight. That's not realistic. So the model that I describe is this transition process. And here's again the part of the challenge I have with schools generally is that they can't get out of their way to let the child learn and to learn how to own their own learning. So for me, this is what I'm talking about. That's the child's learning path and ownership path, and here's the parent. And over in this area right here is when a lot of conflict happens. That's when the child is realizing they can do more. The parent's got to get out of the way. Before that time, the parent is the dominant decider, deciding bedtimes, they're deciding what's going to be on the meal or for dinner, etc. So I hope this helps to clarify. It is not the teacher, it is not the child, it is not the parent who is the owner. It's a transition from the parent to the child. And the minute that another adult, like a teacher or a school instructor and school system, gets in the way of that, it corrupts the child's ability to learn how to learn and to own their own learning. This is what I think is the model that we need to have going forward, and this is what I'm pushing for. Hope that clarifies it. I'm Matt with the Education Game. Thanks.